painful. So do not put your knees into the rail. Besides that, welcome to one of the most famous rooms in our country, the Assembly Room. It's named after the Pennsylvania Assembly. And by the way, on the back of a $2 bill, you'll see an image of this room. Well, the war was going on up around Boston. Let's go up to June of 1776. Over here at the Virginia table, we have Richard Henry Lee. And he put forth a resolution, a proposal for independence. John Hancock, who is from Massachusetts, is up at the president's table. It's a very important man, John Hancock. He's up there. He pulls together a committee of 5 men to work on and to write a Declaration of Independence. I'm going to say their first names. I want you to say the last names of the 5 men who worked on the Declaration. Thomas,
Jefferson,
Benjamin,
Franklin.
And at the Massachusetts table over here near the window, John
Witherspoon.
Adams.
Oh, Adams, nice.
Remember, Hancock's up there. So this is John Adams. And somebody from New York, Robert
Livingston.
Livingston. Begins with an L. And then from Connecticut,
Roger Sherman.
Ooh, good. Sherman. Begins with an S. Roger Sherman. Now, some of you have probably never heard of Roger Sherman, but he's actually one of the most important men in the room. I'll talk more about Roger Sherman from Connecticut later. So those 5 are working on it. Who can tell me the exact date that the Declaration of Independence was actually signed on in the summer of 1776? July
2nd.
How about August?
Ooh.
Okay.
Maybe this.
Well, that's fair. When I was in school, I learned it was July 4th too, but it's not true. This is what really happened. Let's start with the most important date according to the Founding Fathers, July 2nd. Because technically, that's the day we broke away from Great Britain as Congress adopted Lee's resolution for independence. But it's not signed on July 2nd. Now this question is only for the 8th grade girls. I hear no male voices. It's just for the 8th grade girls. The night of July 2nd, John Adams here writes to his wife. What was her first name? Just say it.
Abigail.
Louder?
Abigail.
All right, good. Abigail. Abigail, from this day forth, July 2nd, should we celebrate with pomp, parade, and all sorts of illumination. July 3rd, picture a red-headed fellow, 33 years old, one of the youngest men in the room, Mr. Jefferson, and he is nervous. He ended up doing most of the writing of it, very good writer. Overall, I liked what he wrote. However, the men from South and North Carolina refused to approve it. There's a clause in there that would have ended the slave trade from Africa. Too touchy of a subject. It had to be deleted. And some other deletions on July 3rd, not signed. Just a reminder, no knees in the railings. That was close. All right. So now we're up to July 4th. The New Yorkers at this table are holding out. They're waiting to get the official word for their state, which way to vote. But the 12 other states approved the final written text of the Declaration of Independence. So the wording was approved, but not signed. Now, I don't know if your teachers and individually went to that little building next door yet where we keep the valuable documents. You can walk into it any time. One of them is the first printing of the Declaration of Independence. These are to be published in the newspapers, read to the general public and to the troops in the field as quick as possible. Think about it. They had more important business than signing a document. For example, what type of government should we have? They split up the power between the 13 states and they called it the Articles of Confederation. 4 days later, They read one of these out back for the first time on July 8th. It's still not signed. But then what happened is in mid-July, the New Yorkers finally voted for independence. That made it unanimous. Hancock ordered everybody to come back to sign it on August 2nd. And that is the true date, August 2nd. All right, this question only for the 8th grade boys. 8th grade boys. Who signed it first and largest?
John Hancock.
John Hancock, right. It's easy to spot his name in the center. He's not scared of the king. But some of the other names, you can barely make out. This would be considered high treason. If they were caught by the British, they may be hanging from the gallows. After they signed it on August 2nd, they hid it for about 5 months. Of course, this is not the original. Does anybody know, where is the original?
National Archives.
All right, Washington, D.C., National Archives. And by the way, folks, there is no treasure map on the back of it. Did you see that movie, National Treasure? Yeah. All right.
It's because you need imagery.
You know what I'm referring to. Well, this was the easy part, declaring independence. Now they had to win the war. The Americans were losing so many battles. It was not looking good for us. But luckily we got help from 3 countries. The Netherlands, France, and who knows which country helped us the most? You're correct. Spain. Now I realize probably most of you have never heard this before, but the Spanish helped us the most. It was secretly. A lot of money and supplies from Spain went through France, went through New Orleans, up the Mississippi Valley. So especially with the help of the Spanish and the French, we won a major battle at Yorktown, Virginia. But does anybody know which British general surrendered?
Cornwallis.
Begins with a C.
Cornwall.
Cornwallis, right. The war was basically over. The Articles of Confederation were ratified that year as Maryland signed on. And so they started to use that form of government, the Articles. It worked for a while, but it ended up being very weak, like 13 countries. And they ran into this trouble. And think about this, listen to me closely. The states had the option to pay federal tax. If you had an option to pay tax, what are you going to do? No, not pay, right. You find better ways to spend that money. So luckily for us, James Madison is persistent. He'll eventually form a convention in this room in May of 1787. Their job is to revise the Articles, make some changes. But the first vote, throw them out, start over. They're not following state orders. Now they're meeting in secret. No one's even allowed to take notice. There's stories about the windows being nailed shut so nobody can eavesdrop like the press. All right, do you think they had air conditioning? How often do you think they took baths?
Monthly.
And would you say most politicians are friendly to each other? No. It was a long summer. They argued and argued. It seems like that's what politicians do. Now, if they're smart enough, they'll compromise. That's what life is about, give and take. Think about this. If you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife, when you have to make an important decision, you talk about it. And usually it means give and take. Luckily for us, we have some of the best minds in the country in the room. Benjamin Franklin. Who was that man from Connecticut? Roger?
Sherman.
Sherman. Sherman gets credit for the Great Compromise. He took the best of the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan, put it together. So now in Congress, you have an upper house and a lower house. In the Senate, 2 senators per state. So of course, that's good for the small states. For example, the men down here from New Hampshire or New Jersey or Delaware are pleased. But in the House of Representatives, the larger states, the Commonwealths have a louder voice. The Carolinas, Maryland, Georgia, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, and Indiana. No. Where's the family from Indiana? What was Indiana called back
It's
then?
a territory. It didn't become a state till
Ohio.
1880.
Yeah, it's just a territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's not on the original 13.
No, it's
That
not.
table, by the way, is for the secretary.
Yeah.
All right, so one last thing for you guys. Imagine it's September 17th, 1787. George Washington gets up from his chair. He signs the Constitution first. Franklin made a strange comment about the chair. On top of the chair, there's a carving of a sun. I've been sitting here throughout the course of session, looking at that sun behind the president, trying to decide if it represents a rising or a setting sun. Today, I have the happiness to know it is a
Right.
rising sun, of course. It was his optimism. Something really was born in the world that day. It's no longer about emperors, czars, kings, queens. It's about the people. It goes into the ratifying conventions. The Federalist Papers are being written by 3 men to convince delegates to go forward with the Constitution. Madison, Hamilton, and does anybody know who became the first Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court?
Say it.
John Jay. Right. By June of
That's good
'88,
work.
New Hampshire made the Constitution official. As I like to say, the rest is history. God bless you. Do not think of the Constitution just as a document signed by the Founding Fathers. It's a living document. It can be changed. For example, a couple doors over in Congress Hall, the Bill of Rights get attached to it in the early 1790s. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. All right, 4 original items. Oh, by the way, we'll be out of this room in 1 minute, so finish up your photographs. 4 original items. Thomas Jefferson's black walking stick. On the Delaware table, this walking stick to George Reed. The small feather quill to Caesar Rodney. And of course, the rising sun chair. Just about everything else is a period piece. Ladies and gentlemen, in our short time together, I really hope you discovered the birthplace of your country. The Declaration of Independence was signed here. But more importantly, the U.S. Constitution was debated and signed in this room. This is the beginning of our republic. Have a good day.